On April 11th, 2025, a Cessna 310R airplane took off from the airport in Boca Raton, Florida, in southern Palm Beach County, en route to Tallahassee when it crashed shortly after takeoff near the intersection of Military Trail and Glades Road, killing all 3 occupants. We will analyze today all of the events leading up to this and try to determine what was the real root cause of this plane crash, which hits close to home because it happened in my hometown here. So yesterday I drove over to the scene of the crash up there in Boca, and I spent about 4 hours there in the scene and the surrounding areas, shooting video and photographing the scene 6 different ways to Sunday so that we could get our hands around this and how the plane came down and how it crashed and what happened there. And so I'm able to show you more than the news showed, because the news stations just showed what happened the day of the crash. They didn't show anything else. They didn't analyze the scene. And I'm able to show you more than the aviation channels that cover disasters like this, because they simply weren't there. So first we're going to look at some witness videos and analyze those, and then we're going to analyze the data, and we're going to look at the videos from the actual plane crash site, because it offers up a lot of clues as to how this plane came down. And then, of course, every time there's a plane crash, I don't know why people like this come out and do stuff like this, but look at this. Here you have this representative Eric Swalwell, who says, another plane crash, when will Donald Trump take responsibility? He cuts the FAA and we all pay. I mean, look, people, it doesn't matter whether you love Trump or hate Trump. This is not something you blame on Trump. Oh, there's a traffic light out at Main Street. Oh, it's Trump's fault. So this guy was so far off base. What he does is he takes a plane crash caused by some little mechanical issue on a plane and turns it into something that has absolutely nothing to do with that. And what it really does is it disgraces the families, because what they're doing is taking somebody else's tragedy and using it for their own political soapbox. So all 3 passengers on this plane died, and that would be Robert Stark Sr., he's the grandfather, and then his son Stephen Stark, and Stephen's 17-year-old daughter Brooke Stark, a senior up at Atlantic Community High School in Delray. So here you can see in the International Acrobatic Club website, this is their national category winners. Back in 2004, Robert Stark won in the advanced category. So we can assume he's a pretty talented pilot. So according to media reports, interviews with the family said that they were leaving Boca Raton, Florida, here, and flying 2.5 hours up to Tallahassee because they were going to take Brooke to FSU, that's Florida State University, to check out the college. And unfortunately, they never made it. Okay, now I'm just going to give you the quick 10-cent tour to show you where everything is here in relation and how some of these landmarks are going to be important and play a part here in this story. So, of course, the Boca Raton Airport is right here, and the plane took off this way and did all the loop-the-loops and then did a final loop here and then came right around here and crashed right at the Glades Road Bridge over Military Trail. Now, the Town Center Mall, 2 blocks to the west, is a very high-end, ritzy mall that all the wealthy people shop at, and many people will forego going to other malls in order to go to this mall because of all of the high-end stores there. And you're not supposed to see a plane flying directly over the Town Center Mall either. So here's a video I shot of a plane landing from the Town Center Mall parking lot yesterday. This is the view you were supposed to see. It should be way off in the distance. It should not be flying directly over the mall parking lot. That's not the correct angle for them to be flying in at. And so I want you to pay attention to this right here. This is the Boca Center shopping center that I'm going to show you later on. And the planes come this way here, and they fly pretty much right over this shopping center as a landmark for them to line up with the runway to land, because they'll be landing within 5 seconds or so after flying over this. And then remember, the crash site is here. And then right here is the Boca Raton High School. And then over here is FAU. That's my alma mater. That's where I got my engineering degree. And Boomers is over here. And then the movie theater is right here. And then you'll see some witness video that was shot from this part of the airport up here, right in this area. So this is an important landmark used by the planes coming in for that final landing. This is the Boca Center, formerly known as the Crocker Center, and that's the 60 Vines restaurant that I ate at just a few weeks ago with some of my college friends. We were having a reunion, and that's the Boca Marriott behind it. What's so important about this is the planes use this shopping center to line up for the runway half a mile away. I shot this video yesterday to show you the correct path that the planes normally take. He's about 200 feet up here, and he's flying straight to the end of the runway, just basically a few hundred yards up the road. The crash occurred right up the street here, just around the curve. And then at the northern side of the shopping center is a McDonald's here. And then the McDonald's is the furthest building you can go north right before you hit the area where the plane crashed, right up there at the bridge. And then right here, about 100 yards south of the crash site, is the site of the old King's Deli. Some of you might remember 2005, it got destroyed by Hurricane Wilma. A big loss to all of us. But anyway, the bridge is right there on the right side of the screen. So this is what a plane would look like taking off from the airport. This is, of course, not the exact same plane. There's FAU buildings on the other side of the runway there, and there's a plane taxiing down the runway in the exact path and direction that our Cessna was taking there, the 310R. There's the tower, you can see it. It's a short tower there in the middle of the screen. And now the plane's going to lift off. And this is sort of what it would have looked like with the Cessna 310R taking off from the Boca Raton airport. I shot this video yesterday of a plane coming in over Glades Road. This is the view of the airport from Glades Road when you're sitting on the bridge over I-95 there. And you can see a jet taxiing right there on the landing strip. So this is sort of the view the pilot should have had when coming in for a landing. This is a representation, but shortly after liftoff, the Cessna banked to the left, almost stalling. And so this is what people are expecting to see anywhere around the airport. Anybody that knows anything around that airport, they know where planes are supposed to be and when they are not supposed to be. And so when a plane shows up where it shouldn't be, everybody starts panicking and they all pull out their cameras and they all start recording. So the pilot radios the tower that he's in distress, and the tower calls 911.
911, what is the actual emergency?
Hi, good morning. My name is the Boca Raton Airport Authority. We have an aircraft that's in the air currently in distress, and we were wondering if you could dispatch fire.
Are the air towers already dispatched us or already en route?
You are already en route. Thank you.
Here he's flying right over the Florida Atlantic University soccer field right next to the runway.
He might have. Look at him.
And then he had to come back. That dude's definitely a student.
Now this is a video that was shot by some airport employees who were discussing it, and they already knew on the ground that the plane had problems because they heard about it on the ATC, and other employees there had relayed the information to them. They were trying to evacuate everybody off the airport.
They declared emergency.
Yeah, I told the guy over here, like, don't let that plane out. This guy needs to get on the ground first. They can't let anybody out and evacuate until that guy gets out. His rudder's stuck.
That's why he's just going in circles?
So when I walked out here, he was like right here, like right above right here, like maybe 100 feet above my head.
So the employees were just filming the plane performing these left-hand banking turns around the airport, trying to get lined up with the runway. So now he's in a real good steep banking turn here, but the problem is, see, here's the end of the runway, and he's up too high, and now he's still banking, but he's coming in from sort of the east side. He's flying over FAU property and the water treatment plant. So he's going to be coming at the airport runway at a 90-degree angle, but you can see how rapidly he's losing lift there as he keeps playing with the engine powers, and then he has to like pull it out of the stall at the last minute and try to regain his altitude again. But you can see he's putting up a very valiant fight, and if anybody could do it, it would be this man here, Robert Stark, who has won many awards and trophies over the years for his stunt piloting abilities. So as the plane flies by, you can easily see that the engines are both running, so there doesn't seem to be a problem with it. You can sort of see the left rudder over.
We got a rudder problem. Yeah, where'd he go? That's the $1 million question right now. Probably declared an emergency. There he is.
So I believe that this might be his last cycle of left turn banks before he finally crashes, because you can see how very low he's getting now. He's off in the distance, and they're over that bridge there by Glades Road. They're coming right along Military Trail, and they lost sight of him here on the video because he goes behind the building, but I believe this is where he crashed. This is probably about 2,000 feet away. So the total flying time was about 11 minutes before the crash that you see here. This video was shot by a plane on the runway. Now he's coming in transverse. He's trying to turn right real quick there, but the problem is if he's playing with the engine and trying to get it to bank right, you'll lose lift. And so he has to bank off to the left again and try to regain altitude and try again. Now this is one of the clearest videos that anybody shot of the plane immediately before the crash. This appears to have been videoed from the FAU campus. And so you can see the rudder there does appear to be full left. I'm going to zoom in on it again in a second, but there's the crash scene a few moments later. And then here's a view from the fence that's right where FAU meets the runway. So this is their view, and you can see emergency vehicle there heading down the perimeter roadway. Now I've slowed it down 5x for you and zoomed in a bit, and you can see that the rudder does look like it is hard left. It's forced all the way over. And I can't tell if there's a gust lock on there. But again, like I've said before, I don't think that a gust lock would be the problem here. Because if it was, it would usually keep the rudder in the fully neutral position, which is straight. It wouldn't be going to the left or right. And you probably wouldn't even be able to taxi out to the runway with it. Here, employees at the airport react to the crash.
Oh my God! Oh!
Now this is the video that probably everybody has seen, even on the national news, of this Boca Raton plane crash, because it actually shows it going down, even though you don't see the plane actually hit the ground, but you can see the explosion right there from when it hit.
Oh my God.
Now I've zoomed in for you and slowed it down 5x. The plane is up at about 150 feet now. Both engines are running, so this is not an engine issue. Now you can sort of almost see the top of the wing, but watch, he's starting to enter a big banking turn as he's losing lift here. He's very rapidly losing altitude. So that when the plane clears this light pole right here, you're going to see the underside of the wing now. Whereas before we saw above the wing, actually. See, there it is, the underside of it. And then as it comes by here, let's see if we can see it again. It's going to pop up again. So there it is. Now you're fully seeing the underside of the right wing. So he's in a very steep left-hand turn right now, and he's rapidly losing lift. So right now you can only see just the tail right there. And then that's it. That's the last we see of the plane. So he's now hitting the tops of the trees. Whoever took that video was standing right here in the University Commons Shopping Center at the corner of Glades Road and Airport Road. So the airport strip is over there, and they were shooting over these hedges here. And so they were shooting across the Boca Raton High School football field there, and there's the press box that you saw in the picture. And it crashed right over there. See, and that's right over there on the other side of the bridge. That's the bridge of Glades Road going over the railroad track and going over I-95. While I was standing there, another plane came in to land. So this shows you textbook, folks, the exact altitude that the plane should have been at. See how much higher he is over the press box? That's where he's supposed to be. And now here he comes in for the landing. He's going to fly right over Glades Road. And the airstrip is right on the other side next to the water treatment plant. So I made this PowerPoint slide here to illustrate exactly what we were looking at. So a standard flight comes in right here along this yellow line and lands on the runway. That's the video that I just showed you that I took of that plane coming in. Now the plane that crashed was flying from right here 2 blocks away over the town center mall and doing a sharp left banking turn here. And this is where it lost lift, right here around 19th Street and Military Trail. And so it was up probably around 100 feet here and then just plummeted and down to about 30 feet to the tops of these trees here. When it hit these trees, it disintegrated, and then all of the rest of the plane and the debris went skidding across Military Trail, where it rested right here on the railroad tracks. So the person that shot that video was right here at that University Commons shopping center and was shooting directly across this way. So this was the final moments of that Cessna 310R that crashed here in Boca Raton. Now, the very first witness video from this guy right here, who was coming from the Farmer's Table restaurant at the Wyndham Hotel, which is right in front of where the plane crashed. And he comes running across the street here before any of the police even arrive.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
And the drama here is just incredible, and it just sounds like you're in a war zone here. The plane had skidded across Military Trail in front of this Toyota here, and the Toyota drove through the fireball.
Are you okay? Who's in this car? Who's in this car? Are they in the car? I don't know.
Here's the interview with the owner of that Toyota that caught fire during the crash.
I hear the engine right on top of me, hits the road in front of my car, crash into it, go into the flames.
That's right. His Toyota Prius crashed into the plane along Military Trail.
I ran through the flames to get out, and then made it to safety.
You ran through the flames, like outside the car.
Yeah, so I opened the door and there's fire right there.
Incredibly, his only injuries, first-degree burns, even after crashing his car.
Once the flames are around, I slam on the brakes and try to get out of the way.
Into a palm tree.
Just lucky to be here. Not my day today. Somebody's looking out.
Holy, plane just crashed.
This was likely taken by a person in the office building right there across the street. And notice the debris on this side of Military Trail because it hit the trees and disintegrated. And then this is a view from Boca Raton High School, I believe.
Viado, não é possível que isso é só carro, mano. Olha aqui, mano, tudo.
Then as the fire engines are arriving, people are coming out of the office building. And watch, you're going to see some debris on this side of the street, even though it was all shooting directly across the street. See, there's some right there, and you're going to zoom in on it right there. I believe that's the bottom of the tail. So I slowed it down 5x for you, and the more I look at it, I'm thinking, yes, that does look like the bottom of the tail. But it appears that the tail got sheared off the minute that the plane hit the tree, which means it hit pretty hard. Now, these witnesses here shot this video from the Houston's restaurant a block north. They didn't even know a plane crashed at this point.
See the car?
Where? The car exploded. And then it looks like there's another car like on the tracks.
Yeah, we were at the doctor's.
Oh, is that the train?
And we came. I
don't think it's the train. I hope the train doesn't come.
No, I don't think it's the train.
Did you hear a boom?
And here's a video of the mushroom cloud just as it was forming, taken by somebody in the black glass tower near the Town Center Mall. So they were likely shooting from this building here next to the Town Center Mall. And they were shooting right out, I think, over this little patio, over the parking garage. And in a straight line right over here to where the crash site was. And then here's another witness video taken by another person who worked in the office building right across the street. And you can see all of the debris that was sitting over there on the street. And then look at this one here on the sidewalk. So the plane really did disintegrate quite a bit when it crashed into the trees.
For the emergency.
Hi, I'm at the Houston's on Military and the Glade, and something just dropped from the sky, and there's a big accident.
Yes, ma'am, we're aware. It's a plane accident. Just stay away from the area.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
So before we know it, emergency responders were arriving in droves, and the fire engines that were sent to the Boca Raton Airport were diverted to Military Trail.
Military Trail next to the McDonald's. It looks like there's a plane that crashed.
We got it. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Now, some people had stopped and parked right there on the bridge over Glades Road to see what was going on. So you can see they're taking a view down in between the two bridges at the railroad tracks, and there's the plane and the debris burning down below.
There's the crash site.
This video was shot from the upper level parking deck of the office next door.
And there's the car. I guess they're going investigating.
And all the news stations broke in live, too.
News in Boca Raton. 3 people are dead after a plane crash near Boca's airport. 1 person on the ground was hurt. This all happening on North Military Trail.
A loud explosion, and multiple people we talked to walked outside and they saw a large fireball. They saw all the debris on the ground here on Military Trail, and all of them felt this, some from at least a block away. They felt a huge vibration.
We have some breaking news that we have just coming into the newsroom now, and what you're looking at are images from Chopper 6 as what we have just confirmed as a small plane crash. It happened just west of I-95 near Glades Road. It appears that's Glades Road, the road that you see going right above the train tracks there. We don't have a lot of information now, but you can see the emergency responders there on the scene.
Then pictures from the aftermath started to appear all over the news all afternoon long after the crash, as investigators are left now trying to determine what the cause of this plane crash was in Boca Raton, Florida. And here's another view of the mushroom cloud taken from the airport. And here's a few more photos that were taken from the scene, just very dramatic pictures. There's the plane being taken away afterwards. And it just closed off the entire street there for an entire day, and I believe even overnight as well, as the NTSB investigated this plane crash. Another witness shot this video riding on a scooter over the bridge on Glades Road over Military Trail, looking down on it. So this was hours after the fire was put out, and the investigators are still combing through the debris and the wreckage from the plane crash. And there's the entrance onto I-95 South. The plane actually missed the flight path a little bit. He was off a little bit. He came from this way and came and crashed right over here, slid across the sidewalk and across the grass here and through this fence, and most of the plane ended up right over there, just underneath the bridge, just at the beginning of the bridge. And in fact, it even missed this sign right here, although the sign did get some damage here, some scorching damage from the flames. And so right here at the scene of the crash is a memorial that has been set up, and people have been bringing pictures, mostly of Brooke. But you can see everything sort of seems to start this way and come across at an angle across the street. So I believe that the point of impact, the first point was right here on this curb. You can see the big chunk of concrete that's fresh that was taken out of that curb there. And then as I walk forward a little more, look at the scratches under the barricade there, and then more marks on the curb here and here and here, and you'll see more scratches and gouges right there on the curb that look pretty fresh right over in this area. And then it looks like it went straight across there. There was a chain link fence there. So in total, I would say the whole crash zone and debris field and everything looks to be about 300 feet from here to the bridge. And you know, the other thing that they don't tell you on the news, you can still smell all the burning. Here we are 2 weeks later, you can just still smell everything. You can tell that there was a fire here at one point. And it's just such a shame that 3 generations of the same family died together doing what they love to do the most, flying. Okay, so the plane was coming across this way. You can see right up here, it nailed the tops of all of these tree limbs right here. And then you can see it took out the main part of this tree here. See that? So I'm willing to bet that the left wing, which was pointed downward, probably got sheared off right here. And then it just went diagonally across the street from there right here. Okay, so from right here, after hitting this tree, you can see it comes along here. They've got an orange flag here that sort of marks some other areas here. But you can see the plane kind of hit right here, and it left these gouges all over the road right here. So the plane came right along here. You can see the scratches. And there's where it looks like it. You start to see a lot of fuel beginning to dump right along here where these other gouges are. So this is likely where the wings hit, and it just dragged fuel all the way across there as it hopped the curb across the way and went over into the area under the bridge. And here's a good one coming right here. Look at this. Oh yeah, right there. So here you can see the angle better from across the street. The plane was coming down this way. You could see where it hit the top of the branches there, took out the top part of that entire tree there, hit the ground there, and then skidded across Military Trail to the eastern curbside there, where it hopped the curb, flew through the fence, and ended up underneath the bridge. So the person who shot that witness video was probably over here at the farmer's table and was running across the parking lot here to the bushes and then onto Military Trail. So here it is from another angle where the plane kind of came down like this. Boom. So I put this clip in here to show you this. This was at the perfect timing that that plane came flying by, because when you look at the tree there where the plane had crashed into it, and you can see the difference in just how far off he was, he really wasn't that bad. If he could have only just maintained his height for 2,500 more feet till the runway, he may have made it okay. Now here's a close-up shot of that tree that received the most damage when the plane crashed into it. And the upper part of that tree ended up over on the railroad tracks across the street. But look, that's probably a 14-inch trunk right there. So you can see why a lot of parts came off of this plane right when it struck this tree. So the Cessna probably had a very violent impact with that tree. All across the site I'm finding little tiny bits of debris. They usually try to get most of it up. And here's a part that's impaled in the fence right there. See that? And as we look at it head on here from the tree that got completely damaged, it looks like the wings may have kind of struck here and come along here and maybe tipped here as well, because there's a big hole taken out of the ground right here. And then right next to it, I found some pieces that look like they might be from the plane. There's a metal piece from the plane, I think, and some sheet metal. And not really sure what part this would be, but this was all right here at the bottom of the tree. Along with this here, looks like something from the fuel line. See that? And if you're worrying about me touching evidence, don't worry about it. The NTSB has probably collected everything they needed for their investigation from this site. They're not going to take every single last piece. Look, here's another huge chunk of the plane's metal right here. It's pretty evident that the plane started to break apart once it hit the branches, because look, we're finding more and more pieces of metal here right along the side of the road here on the median. We're finding more pieces of the plane. Here's some more photos I took from the scene of this plane crash of the Cessna C10R up in Boca Raton, Florida. Now I am driving by the crash site on Military Trail, so you can see the entirety of the scene of this plane crash up there in Boca Raton. And check this out. This is why this plane crash hit so close to home for me. You see this building right here? This is IBM's old CDAB building, Special Engineering Design and Build. And I worked there as a graduate research assistant when I was going to FAU, Florida Atlantic University. This is just a few blocks north of the crash site. And this is now the Don Estridge High Tech Middle School. Now, here's another coincidence here, because Don Estridge, some of you might remember that name, it might ring a bell. Don Estridge was an IBM manager, and he is considered to be the father of the IBM PC. And so he's the one that came up with the idea for doing the IBM PC. And they were all built right there in Boca Raton at this massive site that employed thousands of people in the 1980s, just about a mile or so north of where this crash took place. But he is related to another plane crash because Don Estridge himself died in a massive Delta airline plane crash that took place in Dallas, Texas back in 1985. Now, some of you are too young to remember this, but it was a famous crash there in Dallas because it took place during landing during wind shear. And remember that the Boca Raton Airport here is no stranger to plane accidents. We have had 2 other major accidents here. So one was in the year 2000. We had a Learjet 55 that took off, and it collided a few miles away with another plane that had taken off from Pompano Air Park. So they both collided in midair, and everybody was killed there. And then there was another crash that happened back in the mid-'80s also, where these 6 men were on a flight that they were going over to the Bahamas to go snorkeling. And shortly after takeoff, they crashed into the Boca Baton Tennis Club in between 2 houses there. They were all killed. As you look here on the ABSB exchange site, it shows you all of the looping patterns that it did. I think I counted like 9 loops. And then Flight Radar 24 shows you all of the loops that it made before the plane finally crashed off of Military Trail. And if you look here, the average speed was anywhere from like 100 knots. Look, he was pretty low up here. He was at 91 knots right there, 83, 80. And so again, looking in a little closer, here's FAU over here. Here's Glades Road. And here's I-95 that runs right alongside the airport. But look what happens as I zoom in and check this out. The small planes start rolling right here. And they usually are airborne like somewhere around here right before they get to the tower, which is located here. But you can see that even before, but pretty much once he's airborne, the problems start immediately. He starts immediately drifting right off to the left. You see that? And that's why he ends up in this tight little spiral here, and why he's slowing down quite a bit here to like into the 80s range before he tries to get out of that turn and pick up speed. So it looked like he was trying to fight with the power of the engines too there in order to keep that plane in control. But anyway, I'm going to take you here to like one of the last tries. This one right here where he's looping all the way out here. He got as high as at about 600 feet there. It looks like he was looping back around to aim for the runway right here. And it looks like he was still looping and couldn't quite maintain that straight course. And he ended up going back around one more time here. And this right here will end up being the fatal last attempt. So here the plane is stuck in that left bank right here. And he's coming around here. And I'm going to zoom in a little closer to the final place here because you can see he made one final path and he flew directly over the town center mall. And right here, you can see he's doing 141 knots. He's 200 feet in the air. And then right here at this point, he's now flying right over the Nordstrom. So those of you that know the Town Center Mall, you know where the Nordstrom store is. He's flying right directly over it at this point. And then the plane is coming this way. And I'll zoom out a bit more for you to show you. And normally the planes that come into the airport, remember the runway is up here on the upper right, they will fly over this Boca Center. This is the shopping center I showed you with the 60 Vines, and then the Marriott is here. And also the McDonald's is right up here. But on final approach, every single plane is already lined up ahead of time, and he's coming here and he flies right over the Boca Center here, then flies over the railroad tracks here, then flies over I-95 here, and then just barely stays to the left of the Boca Raton High School. That's their football field here. And the planes will then go right over Glades Road and land at the runway. So you can see that this last attempt when he crashes here, he's too far to the left to land you with a good 3-degree glide slope right straight into the runway here. See that? So he's a little bit far off to the left. Now, I was here filming for about 4 hours along this whole area where the crash scene was. And every single plane I saw was over to this side, was way over this way. Some of them even kind of skirt along up here like this. See, there's your flight path. Yep. So you saw the flight path where it should have been, right? The plane actually missed the flight path a little bit. He was off a little bit. He came from this way. So he was pretty far off to the left. I still think he could have saved it, but it just looks like he was stuck in that turn, in that banking turn. And this is where he crashed right on the military trail. 11 minutes or so of nothing but left-hand turns and banks and trying to get the plane back to the runway where he could line it up. It looks like right in this area they were having a lot of problems because you can see that it's not even giving you the altitude reading on any of these data points here. And this usually means that they're probably below 100 feet. And they were probably scaring the heck out of anybody that was along Glades Road here. And that's why I'll show you in the video where somebody was standing here in this University Commons shopping center right here. And this is the person right here where the cursor is that was shooting directly across the Boca Raton High School and the football stadium and the press boxes. And you could see the plane crashing in the background. You couldn't see the actual plane because it's below the tree line at this point, but all you could see was that smoke and the flames from this vantage point. Okay, we saw the debris field and we saw what a mess it was there. So what are the investigators going to be looking for? Well, they're going to be looking at all of the tension cables, of course, that pull on the rudder, and they're going to be checking for any shredding going on there. Like you see here in this video, you can see evidence of shredding going on this particular cable. They're also going to be looking at all the pulleys, the little wheels there that control the cables and provide tension, and they're going to make sure that the cable probably had the right tension. They're going to see if it came disconnected somewhere like that. Because really, that's the only thing I can think of is just some kind of a mechanical issue there with those controls. There really isn't a whole lot there. And we've talked about this before. I don't think that there was a gust lock on there because they would not have even been able to turn on the taxiway. So I guess the NTSB will tell us what they found later on. So stay tuned for that. And by the way, if you missed my video from last week on that deadly nightclub collapse down in Dominican Republic, check this video out right here. And if you haven't seen my other video on the FIU bridge collapse and analysis, that's one of my best ones ever. Check this one out right over here. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see all of you on the next one.